So, this episode is going to get political. There's no way to avoid it. It's deeply woven into the subject matter. Everyone, please stay calm, and if we could all be nice and normal in the comments section, that would be grand. I'm about to share some information with you that's going to make some pretty powerful people really, really upset. There are some things I could say in this video that I worry might land me in hot water if I'm not careful, so this is how we're going to get around that. You and I, my dear viewer, are going to be looking at extracts from a paper written by Joanne Elizabeth Hunt from the Department of Women's and Children's Health at Uppsala University in Sweden. This paper, published in 2022, is titled Biopsychosocial Model or Biopolitical Ideology: Medically Unexplained Symptoms, Welfare Reform, and the Implications for Long COVID. That last part is referring to something that we'll be talking about in an upcoming episode. It's a bit of a spoiler, I know, but let's all just pretend that you didn't hear that. Okay, thank you. What a title! But let's not focus on that. Let's look at the contents. This paper contains information that might be relevant to the question, who would benefit from ME patients sabotaging our own lives? That is what I, the person who made this video, am asking you, the viewer. And I won't tell you how to answer it or what you should think about any of the information we're going to be looking at. But what I am going to do is simply share some of what Elizabeth Hunt has so kindly written down in this paper of hers. These extracts might be flavoured with some of her opinions, but straight off the bat, I would like to come out and very clearly state that I will be making no comment on any of these opinions. They will be Elizabeth Hunt's opinions, not mine, and they are no indication of my own thoughts and feelings. I'm just a voice reading these quotes out to you, and I'm just a pair of hands using a laptop to take screenshots of these quotes and then put them up on the screen. I'm just a vessel, and you get to decide the meaning of the things you're about to see and hear. And I know that this all makes it sound like I'm throwing Elizabeth Hunt under the bus, but on the contrary, the reason why I've chosen to take extracts from this paper in particular is because I think it's really well written. It cites all of its sources, it's concise and very well laid out, and Elizabeth Hunt injects just enough of her opinion into it that it adds to her arguments, yet doesn't detract from the crystal clear narrative that runs through it. If you'd like to read it in full, along with some other papers she's written on the subject of ME and the biopsychosocial model, which contain opinions that I can neither confirm nor deny align with my own, then please follow the link in the description. And remember, the one thing I would ask of you before we properly start this episode is that you keep that question, who would benefit from ME patients sabotaging our own lives, in your mind. Let's jump in with the first extract. Simon Wesley presented his views on MECFS to government officials during a plenary session of the DLAAB at Richmond House, London, in November 1993. Wesley was joined by Professor Peter Thomas, who worked at the Royal Free Hospital subsequent to the 1955 viral outbreak of ME, and who is on record as stating that this outbreak was in fact mass conversion hysteria. Wesley is recorded as stating, among other things, that benefits can often make patients worse, and that it is important not to position MECFS as a progressive or permanent disability. During the plenary, both Thomas and Wesley are documented as downplaying biological factors whilst emphasizing psychosocial factors. This next extract mentions unum or unum, I actually don't know how to pronounce that word. Unum, I guess that's what we're going with, is, according to its Wikipedia page, an American insurance company headquartered in Tennessee and is the top disability insurer in both the United States and the United Kingdom. This extract says, Unum had singled out MECFS as a target for aggressive claims management policy. Unum documentation from 1995 shows that CFS was referred to as new banner for neurosis and states, Unum stands to lose millions if we do not move quickly to address this increasing problem. The subjective nature of CFS leaves us highly exposed to the self-diagnosis of claimants, some of whom take advantage of doctors and the entire insurance industry. Moving on to the next extract. Unum has a history of highly ethically questionable conduct on both sides of the Atlantic. In the US in 2003, then California Insurance Commissioner John Garamendi stated that Unum, then Unum Provident, had been forcing claimants to accept less than their due, adding that Unum represented an outlaw company that, for years, has operated in an illegal fashion. This next extract mentions a man whose last name is Allywood. Do you remember where we've seen that name before? It was written all over the secret files. He was the recipient of many of the letters sent by Wesley and White to the UK government throughout the 80s and 90s. Also introduced in this extract is a man with the last name Locascio. Let's see what it says. Allywood was a member of the DSS Medical Evaluation Group, established to develop stricter benefits assessments from the mid-1990s. Locascio, then both Unum executive and welfare reform consultant to the UK government, was also a member. The two men certainly seemed to sing from the same song sheets. A paper by Allywood and Locascio bears the hallmarks of now dominant BPS discourse pertaining to ME/CFS and so-called medically unexplained symptoms. The authors bemoan the increased claims for benefits on grounds of subjective impairment. CFS is mentioned and appears to be framed as a psychiatric disorder, suggesting that such impairment is related to secondary gains and somaticization. Predictably, they conclude that psychiatrists and psychologists can play an important role in assessing purported contributing factors to long-term disability. At the same time, both Allywood and Locascio support a reduced role for NHS physicians in determining long-term disability, a role that is to be undertaken by disability medical analysts, to be trained and examined through a diploma created by the DWP and Unum influence. Allywood's involvement in Mediprobe, a company set up in the mid-1990s, apparently whilst Allywood was on the board of the DSS Benefits Agency Medical Service, with Allywood's wife listed as director, was likely aimed at finding the right practitioners for such a system.